Hi, how's it going? Welcome to Code with Z. In this video, we gotta multiply two strings together because that's what LeetCode 43 multiply string is asking us to do. Now, I want you to know that I'll explain and visualize everything in the coming slides, but for the sake of reading the question, let's see what the question is actually asking us for. So we're given two non-negative integers called num1 and num2, and we gotta return the product of num1 and num2 as a string as well. However, we're not allowed to use any built-in big integer library or convert the inputs to integer directly. And our examples are pretty simple. For example, we have 2 for num1 and we have 3 for num2. If we multiply these two by each other, it's gonna give us 6. So how should we solve this without breaking this rule that we have here? I'm glad you asked. So let's see how we used to do multiplication on paper when we were in school. So if you remember, we had something like this. We were like, all right, we have 12 and we want to multiply by 34. Let's start with this 4 and we're going to multiply 4 by 2 and that's going to give us 8. And then we're going to multiply this 4 by this one and that's going to give us 4. Then we're going to add a 0 here and we're going to move to this number. We're going to multiply this by this one, 3 multiplied by 2, that's going to give us 6. And then 3 multiplied by 1, that's going to give us 3. And then we add these together. So 8 plus 0, that's going to give us 8. 4 plus 6, that's going to give us 10. So we're going to write 0 and we're going to have a carry. Then 1 plus 3, that's going to give us 4. So we're going to have 4 here. And that's going to be our answer. Now I'll literally bring this here and then I'll explain the structure of the algorithm and then we're going to visualize it together. All right, so this is going to be our num1 and this is going to be our num2. And these two are given to us by the question. It's literally the input in our function. And I think we can all agree that we need to return something, right? We literally need to return a result. So let's have a result variable. And this is going to be equal to an array, and we're just going to fill it with zeros in the beginning. This is literally like saying, all right, we don't know what the answer of this is going to be. So we're just going to have a bunch of zeros here, and then we're going to update these later. So this is why we have zeros here. All right. And the length of this array is going to be the length of this one plus the length of this one. And that's because when we usually multiply two numbers by each other, the result sometimes is lengthier than the numbers we had in the beginning. As you can see, the length of these numbers are 2, but the length of the result is gonna be 3. And the maximum thing that we can have, for example, if we multiply 99 by 99, that's gonna give us this. And we can see the maximum length for the result that we can have is gonna be the length of this one plus the length of this one. As you can see, this is 2 and this is 2. So that's gonna give us a result of length for maximum. So that's why our result has a length of 4. Now, for multiplying these numbers by each other, we obviously need a loop. So we're going to have a for loop and it's going to have a variable called I. This is the variable for our for loop. And this is going to be representing our loop. Anything inside of it is going to be inside of the loop. Now, this loop here is going to loop through our first number. And we're going to need another loop to loop through our second number. So this is going to be our second loop. And again, don't worry, I'm just explaining the structure and then we're going to visualize everything together, literally everything. So this loop is going to be looping through this one and this loop is going to be looping through this one. And inside of this, we're going to only have 4 lines. Literally, our code is so simple. Our product is going to be the number that our I variable is pointing to multiplied by the number that our J variable is pointing to. And in here, we can actually use multiplication. We can convert these numbers into integers and we can multiply them. But what we can do is to directly convert these into integers and multiply them and return them. Then we're going to have a variable called temp sum. And this is going to be equal to result of I plus J plus product. And it makes sense because if you remember here, we had some additions that we used to do. Now, when we calculate our temp sum, we're going to have 2 scenarios. It might be less than 10. Or it might be equal or greater than 10. If it is less than 10, awesome, we're just gonna add it to our result. But if it is equal or greater than 10, we're gonna have a carry, just like we had it here. For example, we said 4 plus 6 is equal to 10. We're gonna have the 0 here and we're gonna have a carry. So we have to account for this in our code. As you can see, we did the multiplication, as you can see it here, and now we're doing our addition, just like we have it here. And we need to account for our carry. So we have to have a logic for that. And the thing that we're gonna do is that we're gonna treat it as if we always have a carry. And we're gonna try to split our temp sum. For example, if we have 15, we have to split the 5 from the 1. We're gonna add the 5 to our result and we're gonna treat the 1 as our carry. Now to get the 5, we have to mod that number by 10. As you can see, we say temp sum mod 10, and that's going to give us the 5 in 15, or it's going to give us the 7 in 70. And we're going to put this inside of our array at the index of I plus j. And again, you're going to see how this works in the visualization. And then we have to take care of our carry. We're going to be like, all right, if we did have a carry, let's add it to the next index of I plus j. And we're getting the carry by saying temp sum divided by 10. So this is going to give us the 5 and 15, and this is going to give us the 1 and 15. And just to bring our old example back, as you can see, we said 4 plus 6 is equal to 10. We have 0, and we added our carry to the next index, as you can see. So this is what we're doing. We're saying add the carry to the next index, and that's it. Then we're going to return our result as a string. As you can see, our result is an array. At the end, we're going to convert it into a string, and we're just going to return it. Now, let's visualize this together. So the first thing that we do is to actually think how we start our calculation here. When we multiply these numbers, we start from the right, not the left. But when we actually loop through our numbers, we start from the left. For example, when we started multiplying here, we said 4 multiplied by 2. 4 multiplied by 2. But if we loop through these, we're going to have 1 multiplied by 3, and we don't want that because we want to have the same thing that we have here. So we're going to reverse our numbers like so. As you can see, they were reversed, and this is going to take care of the problem. Now, when we start, we're going to multiply 4 by 2. 4 by 2, just like we have it here. But because we reverse these numbers, we have to reverse our result at the end, and that's why we have this here. Now for the fun part, and let's start our visualization. So in the beginning, our I is going to be equal to 0 because it's the first round of our loop, and we're going to enter this loop, and our j is going to be equal to 0, again because it's the first round of this loop, and we're going to enter this inner loop. We're going to define product, and we're going to say get the number that I is pointing to, which is 2 because our I is 0, and the number at the index of 0 is going to be this 2. And as you can see, this is literally the same thing. And then we're going to get the number that j is pointing to, which is going to be this 4 because this is the number with the index of 0, and our j is 0. And again, this is literally like saying this. So let's bring those two numbers, 2 and 4, and we're going to multiply them by each other, and that's going to give us 8. So our product is equal to 8. And then we're going to come down here, and we're going to say temp sum is equal to result of I plus j. As you can see, they are both 0. So this is going to give us 0, and the number at the index of 0 in our result is going to be this 0 here. So that's going to give us 0 again, like so. And our product is 8. So our temp sum is going to be 8. Then we're going to come down here, and we're going to say result at the index of I plus j, meaning result at the index of 0 plus 0, which is the result at the index of 0, should be equal to temp sum, which is 8 mod 10. And 8 mod 10 is going to be 8. So we're going to add 8 to this position here. Then we're going to come down, and we're going to check for carries. We're going to say the position of I plus j plus 1, that's 0 plus 0 plus 1, should be equal to itself plus temp sum divided by 10. Well, itself is 0, as you can see. This is 0, so we have it here. Temp sum is 8, so 8 divided by 10, that's going to give us 0.8. 0 plus 0.8, that's going to give us 0.8. We're going to ignore decimals, and we're going to treat this as 0. And we're going to add this 0 to this position here, because we're saying result at the index of 1 should be equal to 0. And then we're going to reach the end of this loop, and we're going to start the next round, like so. Now, j is 1. Nums of I is going to be pointing to this number here, as you can see. And that's going to be 2. And nums of j is going to be pointing to this number, as you can see. 2 multiplied by 3, that's going to give us 6. Our product is 6. We're going to calculate our temp sum. We're going to bring the number at this index in our result array, which is going to be 0 plus 1. And that's going to give us this number, which is 0. And we're going to add our product to it. And that's going to be 6. And our temp sum is going to be equal to this, which is going to be 6 as well. Then again, we're going to say the position of I plus j, meaning 0 plus 1, which is going to give us this index, and it's going to be pointing to this position here, should be equal to temp sum, which is 6 mod 10, and this is going to give us 6. And we're going to add it here. Then we're going to say this position, which is I plus j plus 1, meaning 0 plus 1 plus 1, that's going to give us this position here, should be equal to itself plus temp sum divided by 10. Itself is 0, temp sum is 6, divided by 10, that's going to be 0.6. 0 plus 0.6, that's going to give us 0.6, but we're going to treat it as 0 because we don't want decimals. And we're going to reach the end of this loop, and we want to keep on looping, but we've already looped through all of the numbers that we have here, so we're going to break out of this loop, and we're going to get to the next round of our outer loop, and that's going to make I be equal to 1. This time, I is pointing to the number with the index of 1, so it's going to be pointing to this number here, as you can see. And we're going to initialize j again to 0 because we're going to repeat this loop, and j is going to be pointing to this number here. So I is going to be 1 and j is going to be 0, and they're pointing to these numbers here respectively. So we're going to have 1 multiplied by 4, and that's going to give us 4. Then we're going to calculate our temp sum. We're going to bring this number at this index, which is going to be 1 plus 0, and that's going to give us this number at this position, which is going to be 6. And we're going to add product to it, like so. 6 plus 4, and that's going to give us 10. And if you remember, we had a 10 as well here when we did the addition. So our temp sum is equal to 10. Then we're going to be like this position, which is going to be 1 plus 0, which is going to give us this position here, should be equal to temp sum mod 10. temp sum is 10, so result at the index of 1 should be equal to 10 mod 10, and that's going to give us 0. So we're going to add 0 here. Now we're going to calculate our carry. We're going to say result at this index, which is going to be 1 plus 0 plus 1, should be equal to itself plus temp sum divided by 10. This is going to give us the index of 2, so it's going to be pointing to this number here. So we're going to have 0 plus 10, which is our temp sum divided by 10. This is going to give us 1, and we've added 1 to this position. Then we're going to reach the end of this loop, and we're going to enter the next round. This time I is still pointing to this number here, but j is pointing to this number. So we're going to bring these numbers again. I is pointing to 1 and j is pointing to 3. If we multiply them by each other, that's going to give us 3. Our product is 3. Let's calculate our temp sum. Our temp sum is equal to result at the index of I plus j, which is going to give us 2, like so, and it's going to give us this number here. So we have 1 here plus product, which is 3, and we're going to have 4. So our temp sum is 4, and we're going to say result at the index of I plus j, which is going to give us 2, like so, and it's going to be pointing to this number here, should be equal to temp sum mod 10, and that's going to give us 4. So we're going to add 4 here, and we're going to check for carries if we have one. We're going to say result at the index of I plus j plus 1, and that's going to give us 3. So result at the index of 3 should be equal to itself plus temp sum divided by 10. Well, itself is 0, so 0 plus 4, which is our temp sum, divided by 10, that's going to give us 0.4. 0 plus 0.4, that's going to give us 0.4 again. And we're going to treat this as 0 because we don't want any decimals. So we're going to add 0 here. And we're going to reach the end of this loop as well because we've already looped through all of the numbers that we had. Now we have to reverse our result like so. And as you can see, 34 multiplied by 12 is going to give us 408. But we need to get rid of the 0 here. So we're going to say, before returning our result, get rid of all of the leading zeros like so, and this is gonna get rid of this 0 that we have here, and then we're gonna return this as a string like so, and this is gonna be our answer. Now let's code this in the simplest way possible. Alrighty, so first of all, let's define our result array just like we saw in the slides, and we have to give it a length, and we said the length is gonna be num1 dot length plus num2 dot length. Because we said the length of our result array is gonna be equal to the length of the first number plus the length of the second number. And we gotta fill it with zeros like so. Then we have to reverse our numbers. So I'm gonna say num1 is equal to, I have to convert this into an array, reverse it, and then convert it back into a string. So this is what I'm gonna do, dot split like so, and then I'm gonna reverse it and change it back into a string like so. And I'm gonna have the same thing for our second number. So num2, as you can see, and this is basically reversing our numbers. Then below this, we're gonna have our loops. We're gonna say for let I being equal to 0, we wanna keep on looping as long as I is smaller than num1 dot length, and we wanna keep on incrementing I on each round. Inside of this, we're gonna have our second loop. We're gonna say for let j being equal to 0, we want to keep on looping as long as j is smaller than num2 dot length, and we want to increment j on each round. Here we're going to define our product variable just like we saw on the slides, and we're going to say num1 at the index of I multiplied by num2 at the index of j. But these are going to be strings, so we have to convert them into numbers so you can actually do the multiplication. I want to use the convert function here. I'm going to use minus the string version of 0, and this is going to basically turn this into an integer, and I'll have the same thing for this one. This is basically like saying convert these into integers. So this is going to take care of our multiplication, and then below this we're going to define our temp sum like so, and this is going to be equal to result at the index of I plus j, just like we saw in the slides, plus product like so. Then we have to split our numbers just like we saw in the slides. We're going to say result at the index of I plus j should be equal to temp sum mod 10. Then we're going to check for our carry. We're going to say result at the index of I plus j plus 1 should be equal to itself plus temp sum divided by 10. But we have to remove all of the decimals that we're going to encounter here. So we're going to say math.floor should be wrapping this like this, and it's going to take care of all of the decimals. And this is going to be our loops. We're going to scroll down here because we got to reverse our result. We're going to say result is equal to result reverse, just like we saw in the slides, and we have to get rid of all of the leading zeros. So we're going to say while result at the first index is equal to 0, result dot shift, and this is going to basically remove the first element inside of our result. It's like pop, but from the beginning of the array. So we're gonna keep on removing from the beginning of our result until the first element in our result array is not gonna be equal to 0. Then we're gonna return result.join. This is basically gonna turn our array into a string, and we're gonna return it. Now, this is all of our code, but what will happen if one of our numbers is 0? Well, if we have 0, we're just gonna return 0. Like a billion multiplied by 0 is still gonna be 0. So we're gonna say if num1 is equal to 0 or num2 is equal to 0, like so, return 0. Now, let's run this and see if we're gonna pass our tests. Yep, as you can see, both of them are passed. Now, let's submit it. Moment of truth. Let's see if we're gonna get accepted. And yep, as you can see, we're accepted. That's awesome. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep on coding.